Before I learned to control a room, I learned how to disappear inside one. Before I could bend people to my will, I had to survive them. In a house where fear wore my father's face and silence was my only shield, I discovered the first rule of survival: speak less, see more. Every manipulation, every deception, every conquest, it all started here. In the moments no one saw, in the bruises no one asked about. Welcome to my beginning. Welcome to Lessons in Silence. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us and tap the notification bell. We drop new content every day. Stay tuned so you never miss a story. Chapter 1. The First Scar. You never forget the first time silence becomes your language. Not the peaceful kind of silence, not the calm after a storm, the hush of a late-night snowfall. No, I'm talking about the kind of silence that strangles your voice before it even leaves your throat. The kind that presses against your ribcage from the inside, until your own breath feels like a betrayal. I was 7 years old the first time I learned it. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and wet ash. The lights flickered overhead, buzzing like dying insects. I sat at the battered wooden table, legs swinging back and forth because they couldn't touch the ground yet, clutching a plastic cup in my hand like it might save me. My father sat across from me, nursing his whiskey like it was oxygen. One cracked hand wrapped around the bottles, neck the way he sometimes grabbed mine when he thought I wasn't listening closely enough. His knuckles were scabbed, his jaw unshaven, his stare heavy enough to nail me to the chair. I could feel it before it happened. The shift, the tightening of the room, the way the air turned to glass, fragile, waiting to shatter. I hesitated, but I was thirsty, and thirst made children stupid. "Can I have some milk?" I asked. 3 words. Soft, timid, a whisper really. But it didn't matter. The bottle clattered to the table. His hand swung. So fast I didn't even have time to brace, and the world snapped sideways. White noise filled my head. Pain bloomed across my cheek like a firework detonating under my skin. The cup slipped from my fingers, landing hard against the table before rolling onto the floor. Milk sloshed over papers, over the table's edge, dripping in fat, lazy beads onto the cracked linoleum. For a moment, everything was still. Even my father. He stared at me, breathing hard, fists clenched like he wasn't sure whether to hit me again or pour another drink. I sat there, motionless, frozen, and somewhere deep inside me something shifted. A line was drawn, and on one side of that line was the boy who thought asking for milk was safe. On the other side was the boy who would never speak unless he was certain of the consequences. I lowered my eyes. I swallowed the sob clawing up my throat, and I made a vow. Silence is safer than truth. Silence is stronger than hope. I wasn't going to be the boy who needed things anymore. I was going to be the boy who took note, the boy who watched, the boy who waited. Because there's something people never understand until it's too late. The silent ones, they see everything. Chapter 2, Puppeteer in Training. School didn't feel safer. It felt like a scaled-down version of the same house I was trying to survive, except painted in softer colors. The teachers smiled wider here. They wore kindness like makeup, layered thick enough to crack under pressure. They handed out gold stars and good effort, stickers like they mattered, like they thought praise could erase the bruises hiding under long sleeves. But I knew better. Praise wasn't real. It was currency, and every adult had a price. So I learned to read them. I learned the tells. Mrs. Hanley, my second-grade teacher, twitched the corner of her mouth when she lied about liking her job. Mr. Carmichael, the guidance counselor, tapped his pen against his desk when he was impatient, when he wanted you to hurry up and cry so he could feel good about doing his job. It was all a performance. And once I saw the performance, it wasn't hard to join the cast. I became the good boy, the one who raised his hand at just the right moments, the one who volunteered to wipe down the chalkboard after class, the one who wrote heartfelt essays about how much he loved his strong and supportive parents. Those essays won awards. Lies taste sweeter when they're dipped in innocence. I wasn't lying because I was evil. I was lying because I was a survivor. Because in a world that's rigged against you, there are only 2 choices: be the puppet, or become the puppeteer. And I knew, even then, at 9 years old, sitting in that too-bright classroom with its pastel posters about believing in yourself, I would never be the puppet again. Chapter 3, The Mirror Moment. The hallway smelled like old wood and something sour, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes and your skin even after you leave. There was only one mirror in our house. hung crookedly in the narrow upstairs hallway, where the floorboards creaked just loud enough to betray you if you tried to sneak past at night. The mirror itself was broken, spiderwebbed down the center, splitting every reflection into two imperfect halves. One side clear, sharp. The other fractured, a jigsaw puzzle missing pieces nobody could find anymore. I used to avoid it. I used to avert my eyes as I passed, rushing from my bedroom to the bathroom and back again, pretending not to see the way it distorted me, made me smaller, made me other. But that night I stopped. I stood there barefoot in the cold, staring at myself under the thin flicker of a hallway bulb on the verge of dying. My face was flushed where my father's backhand had found me earlier. A perfect, blooming imprint of his rage, painted across my skin. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. It throbbed in time with my heartbeat, a living brand. I stared into the glass. The boy looking back at me didn't cry. He didn't even blink. He just watched. Silent. Still. Like a creature from another world who'd been trapped behind glass and knew better than to scream. The longer I looked, the more I saw. I saw the lie my father believed, that pain would make me obedient. I saw the lie my mother believed, that ignoring the violence would protect me. I saw the lie I had once believed, that if I was just good enough, it would stop. It wouldn't. It never would. Good boys don't survive bad places. Only the clever ones do. Only the ones who learn not to need anything. Not kindness. Not fairness. Not love. I lifted my hand and traced the crack running down the mirror with my fingertip. It split my face in two. One half of me looked almost normal. The other half broken. Shattered. Unrecognizable. Maybe that was the truth. Maybe I'd always be both things. The mask and the monster. The boy who wanted to be loved, and the boy who would destroy anyone who tried. That was the night I decided. If no one was going to protect me, if the world was just one long, rigged game, then I would learn to play better than anyone. Not with fists. Not with tears. Not with begging. With silence. With smiles. With 100 tiny invisible cuts no one would notice until it was too late. I would become what they needed. I would become what they trusted. And then I would bend them, just like my father bent me. But this time, the breaking would be my choice. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and whispered 3 words I would live by for years without even realizing it. No one wins. Not the ones who love too easily. Not the ones who fight too loud. Only the ones who adapt, who disappear when needed and reappear when it matters. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, the boy who needed saving was gone. All that remained was a hollow reflection, waiting for the right moment to step through the mirror and take the world apart, piece by fragile piece. Chapter 4, First Blood. The first manipulation is never glamorous. It's not some grand, cinematic moment where the clouds part and a crown drops onto your head. It's small, quiet, almost forgettable if you don't know what you're looking for. It starts with a single question, a glance held a second too long, a word placed where a wound already lives. My first real blood came from Mrs. Connolly, 7th grade math teacher. Sharp suits, sharper tongue, the kind of woman who could make a straight-A student sob at their desk just by sighing and writing, "See me after class" in red pen. I should have feared her. Most kids did. Hell, even the assistant principal tiptoed around her. But I didn't, because I saw it. The crack. The tiny flicker in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. Loneliness. Not the easy kind either, the rotting kind. The kind that had hollowed her out from the inside until she clung to her authority like a drowning woman clutches driftwood. She needed to be needed. And I needed an ally. Not a friend. Not a mother figure. Not someone to hug me after class and tell me everything would be okay. I needed a pawn. So I became the thing she didn't know she was begging for. It started with mistakes. Deliberate ones. I fumbled easy equations. Mixed up my decimals. Sat in the second row. Not too close, not too far. Head low, chewing on pencils, slouching just enough to look defeated without seeming lazy. I let her notice me. It didn't take long. One afternoon, while the rest of the class bolted for the hallway like freed prisoners, she stopped me with a single word. "Stay." I looked up, eyes wide, vulnerable, rehearsed to trembling perfection. She leaned against her desk, arms folded, sighing like it pained her to care. But she cared. God, did she care. "You're a smart boy," she said. "Too smart to be failing this badly." I said nothing. I let the silence stretch so thin it almost snapped. She took the bait. What's going on, son? First mistake, calling me son. I shrugged, eyes shining just enough to catch the fluorescent light. My dad says I'm stupid sometimes. I whispered, like it was a secret I hated spilling. A half-truth. A seed. Her posture softened instantly. She crossed the room and knelt beside my desk, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial murmur. You're not stupid, she said. You just need someone to believe in you. I nodded. Small. Broken. Obedient. Exactly the way she needed me to be. The next few weeks, she assigned me special tutoring sessions. Private lunch meetings. After-school study hours in her office while the halls emptied and the night crept into the windows. She fed me confidence like it was candy. Told me I was brilliant. Told me I just needed the right, nurturing environment. I told her thank you. I told her she was the only one who understood. What I didn't tell her was that while she was filling out glowing evaluations to the school board about my remarkable turnaround, I was using her unlocked office access to get into the faculty server. One email forward. One changed login credential. One signature, expertly forged. Suddenly, I had the final exam answers a month early. I aced the test. Of course I did. Mrs. Connolly beamed with pride as she handed back the paper, tapping the perfect score with her manicured nail. I knew you could do it, she whispered. And all I could think was, I made you need me. I made you vulnerable. I bent you without touching you. Without threats. Without tears. Just understanding. Understanding the one thing no one ever teaches you in school. Love is just another weakness when you know where to press. I should have felt guilt. Maybe a flicker of shame. But as I watched her glow with pride at her student's transformation, all I felt was a low, cold satisfaction curling in my gut. This was survival. This was evolution. And I had just taken my first sip of real power. It tasted like honey and gunpowder. Sweet. Dangerous. Unstoppable. Chapter 5. The Birth of a God. It didn't happen all at once. There was no lightning bolt. No booming voice from the heavens. No burning bush proclaiming, you have become something more. It was quieter than that. It was a whisper that started in the marrow of my bones and slowly infected the rest of me. It said, you don't have to be afraid anymore. It said, they are weaker than you. It said, you see them, but they will never truly see you. And the first time I listened, truly listened, something inside me uncoiled. A hunger I hadn't even known was starving. At school, my masks became second nature. Around Mrs. Connolly, I was the promising prodigy. Around the principal, I was the reformed troublemaker, eager to make good. Around my classmates, I was whoever they needed me to be, the funny one, the brooding one, the invisible one. Shape-shifting wasn't hard once you realized the truth. People don't want you to be real. They want you to reflect back the version of themselves they wish was true. They want to see loyalty, bravery, honesty, purity, all lies, all illusions. The truth was too ugly, too hungry, too close to the bone, and I had learned to weaponize that truth without ever having to show it. I could sit in a room full of people, listen to them talk about their dreams, their hopes, their fears, and without lifting a finger, I could thread those fragile little pieces together into a net so fine they wouldn't even feel it tightening until it was too late. A word here, a look there, a sigh, a smile, a silence. Manipulation isn't seduction. It isn't domination. It's recognition. It's seeing someone's deepest fear before they do. It's touching that fear so gently that they mistake you for salvation. At home, nothing changed. The violence, the screaming, the plates shattering against the walls. But it didn't touch me anymore. Not really. Because every slap, every sneer, every drunken stumble was just more evidence for the prosecution. The world wasn't built on fairness. It was built on who could fake it best. Who could smile through bloodied lips and broken ribs and still make someone believe they were winning. I wasn't the scared little boy anymore, begging for milk. I was the one taking notes. I was the one building maps. Maps of weaknesses. Maps of power. And one day, not long after my 13th birthday, as I sat at the kitchen table pretending to do homework while my father raged in the next room about some imagined slight, I realized, I am untouchable. Not because I was stronger, not because I was braver, because I had learned to exist where no one could reach me. Because I had learned to see the strings behind every action, every emotion, every desperate human attempt at love, acceptance, power. And once you see the strings, you can pull them, anytime you want. There was a moment that winter, bitter cold, frost caked on the inside of the windows, when I stood in front of that broken hallway mirror again. Older now, taller, eyes darker than before. I stood there barefoot, the hem of my shirt damp from spilled dishwater, and I stared at the boy reflected back at me. Except he wasn't a boy anymore. He was something else. Something sharper. Something hungrier. Something inevitable. I leaned in, so close my breath fogged the glass, and I whispered, "You are your own God now." And the broken reflection smiled back. The next morning, I tested my new power. Small, insignificant to anyone but me. I slipped a whisper into my mother's ear over burnt toast and cold coffee. "You should tell him you're leaving. You deserve better." I said it like it wasn't my idea. I said it like it was hers. And later that night, when the shouting started and she finally screamed those words at my father, when he stood there stunned, blinking like the ground had shifted under his feet, when she packed a suitcase in under an hour and fled into the freezing dark, I realized something that made my stomach twist with fear and thrill. I hadn't just survived my father's rage. I had controlled it, redirected it, made it collapse in on itself. And if I could do that to the man who once ruled my world with his fists, what else could I do? To anyone? To everyone?